How's it going? Trey Clark here, as I usually am, and we're going to jump right into this as I usually do. So we spent a lot of time talking about the moon, shape of the earth, all that kind of stuff. Water, I've been really interested in, obviously, but for more reasons than what we usually talk about it. I've been comparing it to the Trinity, the three states, and how they're everywhere at once and all that kind of stuff. The one thing, I was thinking the firmament was the Holy Ghost. Basically, it encompasses everything, and God is all things, and water. And there's another video on that. I don't want to get into that. What I want to talk to you about is something I wasn't thinking about. And this is pretty interesting, and I haven't seen a lot of, I've tried to look up some information, so there's not a lot out there on this idea, but how important salt is. Okay, we know water is important, and we know that if the sun and the moon are some kind of positive and negative charge around the North Pole, you know, a lot of us understand that. If not, there's more videos on that you can find. That they're like a battery spinning around a copper mountain. There's a reason why they don't let us actually go to the North Pole. I bet you there's something there like that, or at least some kind of mine. That's just a theory. I don't know that for sure, obviously. But salt, how important salt is, and how abundant it is in the most abundant thing on our earth, which is water. Now, we all know the oceans are salt water. We can't harvest the salt water without, an expensive process. There's an awful lot of salt in the ocean, and it's chalked up to, well, animals die and they give off salt. But freshwater lakes are not salty. So I'm not buying into the idea of how salt got there. I think it's important to the whole structure of how this stuff moves. And I know some of you are going to be like, oh, if you don't buy into any of this stuff or you're not ready for it, just move on, save some bandwidth before you start slinging mud. Because a lot of people put a lot of thought into this, and including me. So, but salt being abundant in the oceans makes sense because salt water is a great conductor of electricity, of electromagnetic energy, okay? There's plenty of stuff on that. You put salt in water, it becomes super conductive. And so the idea is that, okay, you got the moon, the sun, they're going around the North Pole, okay, that's on a plate, even though this is square, call this the plate. North Pole here, moon, sun going around, and it's creating energy. Okay, where's the energy come from? Well, there are some problematic things that I haven't thought through yet. However, if it goes down through the pole, if you just think about a battery wire that is being fed energy from somewhere, the ocean is a very good conductor because the salinity level is so high. That's important. I mean, do you really think, if you think about it, how did all that fucking salt get to the ocean? From dead fish? Because there should be at least a minor level of salinity in freshwater, stocked lakes, something like that. But there's not. It's nothing like that. So it's not coming from dead sharks and stuff like that over eons and billions of years. So, so if the moon and the sun are positive, negative charge going around, yin and yang, I mean, you don't have to look far to understand the positive and negative of anything, happening. The moon's a cold light, the sun's a warm light. All the factors are there to think that people knew something about it when they were, leaving their thoughts behind, their civilizations. But if you think about it, if salt water is a superconductive thing, what is at the bottom of the oceans? They are self-illuminating animals, okay? That emits energy, just like fireflies or anything like that. And I have a video out, I might even put the link to it down here, about what happens when you scratch the firmament, what happened to the Falcon Heavy, or the Falcon 9, I can't remember. and you could see it light up. And I think there's something there with that energy in luminescence or whatever it is when animals light up, and that does emit an energy. And we haven't explored 95% of the most abundant part of the entire world, which is our oceans. Okay? So to think that the oceans are not turning this clock, or a big part of it, or part of the battery that is doing all of this, is not true. There's no way it's true that it's just a bunch of salt in the ocean that has nothing to do with why the entire Earth works perfectly like a clock. So my idea is that, now if you think about it, I've lived on the ocean for a while now, and the tides are not on a 28-day cycle. Okay, the tides do not follow the moon. They have their own cycle, but it's not the moon's cycle. You can just look it up. I thought it was at first, but I remember thinking, well, why do the tides not just come in whenever the moon's overhead? Because the moon only comes around once a day, right? And tides, we have high and low tide twice a day. Well, that's problematic right there. Now, here's another thing you might not have thought about. Things should weigh less during high tides. If the moon is strong enough to pull quadrillions of gallons of water towards it to where it could actually flood a beach every day, twice a day, it's got to have this immense power to move matter and mass. And the ocean isn't, it's fluid, so it's not like it's a rock that you can just weigh it and it weighs more, weighs less. It moves with it. It's a lot to put into that energy if it's the moon, which I don't believe it is, that is moving that. Okay, so if it can move that much, then pretty much we should be able to measure, say I'm, a little over 200 pounds, a little more than over 200 pounds, but I should weigh measurably less during high tides if I'm standing near the beach. Okay, if it can move, who knows how many gallons there really is in the ocean, but let's just call it quadrillions, enough to where you can't even fathom the number of zeros you would need to write the number out, is my guess. I should kind of rise up too. I should lose a couple of pounds during high tide and low tide. Otherwise, we're back at the same point where gravity is the most powerful force in the universe that can mold spheres out of debris floating in vacuums and do all this crazy stuff, yet it doesn't affect me except to the Earth. If the moon, 250,000 miles away, can move all of our oceans, not in synchronicity with the moon's path, but for some reason, it can move all of the oceans. It's like raising mountains, okay? And yet nothing else is affected. I mean, I would think like a pin would almost float in the air if it was that powerful. We should be losing things into the atmosphere. We don't talk about the moon and the tides enough. I think the tides are more tied to the salinity of the water, because electricity and the electromagnetic energy that's going on. I'm not drawing out a diagram on this. I'm still looking for it. There's just oddly not very much information on this. But if you look at the world like a battery, you got your North Pole right in the middle. Imagine this is round. Sorry, I'm just grabbing what I got. North Pole here, sun and moon traveling around. That creates a magnetic field. Boom. Go down into the salinity of the salt water. You actually have who knows what abundance of self-illuminating energy from life, from animals that self-illuminate, electric eels, all that kind of stuff. You think that's infinitesimal, but the fact that we don't even see 95% of these animals, that's something to think about. I mean, it's not nothing. It's a theory, obviously, but what the fuck are we doing if we're not trying to figure stuff out? It makes a lot more sense to me than a floating rock with salt water stuck to it and tides that only work on salt water. Some people will argue that, yeah, I've lived on Lake Michigan and we do have small tides or whatever. No, I've looked into it. My understanding is, no, there's no, it's definitely not congruent with ocean tides. Okay, they just say, the best I've gotten is sometimes the water's higher than lower. Now, one weird theory that I'm kind of ruling out because it doesn't make as much sense, because I do believe the Earth is stationary, but it is worth looking into. If you have thoughts about this, please chime in. That when you're in a bath, if the Earth is slightly moving, just kind of rocking, like maybe if you moved in a bathtub back and forth like that, you wouldn't have to move much, and you would start to create a rhythmic current back and forth that would raise one side, raise the other, or if you moved it around, it would kind of like slosh. I've seen a video on that. It wasn't as compelling as, it wasn't all that compelling because I don't believe the Earth is moving. But it's something to think about. So we're trying to check boxes to move on. So I know this is kind of out there, and if you're new to this stuff, just have an open mind. I know that it can be daunting to start to look into this because we've been taught what we've been taught, myself included, our whole lives. And so there's a period of time where things get turned upside down and it's not comfortable. And then, God forbid, you talk about it, and just trust me, just be ready. But we're getting there. We're getting to where it's not quite so crazy. I've talked to several people lately that are like, I've been listening to you thinking you were crazy for a while, but then you said that one thing. And the one thing that my buddy last night was talking to me about, a very close friend of mine, was like, it's when you said something, and it was Jaronism. I want to give him props for this. When the Red Bull guy jumped out of the hot air balloon, he only landed relatively close to where he jumped out. Well, the Earth's spinning that fast, then you should, and they're out of the atmosphere, so you're not in that cocoon that no one can explain gradiently. But how he didn't land in another continent is mathematically impossible. So just every now and then someone's going to connect a dot. So don't be afraid to say the truth. If you think it's true, say it. Someone's going to hear it, and there might be a light bulb that goes off. And also, don't be afraid to be wrong. I may be totally wrong about my thought with the salt water creating electrical current, but there's no shortage of information about how salt water creates or conducts current more so than fresh water. You can do it yourself. So anyway, I hope you all having a great day. This is food for thought. I'm trying to figure this out like everybody else. So do some research, look at it. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe you'll find a thread or information on YouTube or a book that I haven't come across. And I'm always looking for new information. So if you're going to be tacky on this thread, I'm a pretty good reverse troll, as people have seen. So just go on to the next car to break into. So cheers, guys. Hope you're all having a great day.